Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's work and the Cosmere. I'm not Eric, I'm Ala, and I will be your host for today. Today is the day for new things, so with me today is... Yeah. So with me today is Veronica.
Hello, I am Cheyenne Sedai.
Yes, and also some new faces. Yes, we've made them mods less than a month ago, and they are already putting in work. Impressive work ethic, really. So, say hello to Adim.
Hi, X on Discord.
And Will.
I am #1 Taln Fan on forums and Discord.
Yes, the amount of Taln discussion on this podcast is about to skyrocket.
Yeah, we're going to exponentially increase from previous episodes.
The amount and the quality, I'm sure.
And, of course, I'm Rasarr, and this is our final episode before the release of Wind and Truth. Can you believe that? The book
Honestly,
is
no.
Yeah, we are just a few weeks away from the book. I think it's going to be 2 weeks when this releases.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so before that happens, we still have the preview chapters. And so today we'll be covering the first set of interludes, because we kind of missed those in the last episode, and the entire day 2. So obviously, spoiler warning, we will be talking about everything Stormlight up to the end of day 2. Not the interludes after day 2, because they are not out yet, if they will be posting them before the book comes out. We probably won't be talking about anything from other Cosmere books, but if that happens, we'll put a spoiler warning in the chapter, in the YouTube
I think
chapters.
there'll be a few things.
Yeah, I think just general Cosmere mechanics, spiritual realm stuff and whatnot.
Right, right. So, first question for everyone. How do you feel about day 2?
It's long. I think it's double the length of day 1, nearly. There was a lot in it. I did like it. I did like it better than part 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, same. I know that people have been joking that someone other than Brandon wrote day 1, and I think that there definitely was a change in my enjoyment of the chapters in general. I like some chapters in day 1, but I liked many more chapters in day 2. There were still a few things that sort of were carryovers from day 1 that I didn't particularly enjoy. A few new things in day 2 that I didn't particularly enjoy, but I liked the expanded scope, faster pace that they were setting.
More actual stuff happening.
Yeah.
Part 1, not much happened action-wise.
Which is kind of funny because both day 1 and day 2 have so far been almost entirely set up.
Yeah.
Things only really started happening in the last 2 or 3 chapters of, maybe 5 chapters, because Shallan has her whole ghost blood thing.
Right.
Yeah, but it's still mostly been set up, but a lot better, a lot more interesting setup.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, day 1 definitely felt like an epilogue to Rhythm of War that was shifted over to Wind and Truth.
Yeah.
Getting people into position and stuff. And I mean, day 2 is also doing that, but it has some new stuff as well.
Yeah, I feel like day 1 was kind of the denouement of Rhythm of War, but the chill part. And day 2 started we actually have a deadline here. The stakes are all the way back up again.
Yeah.
So day 1 was that rest period of let's process a bit, which I get maybe why, but also Brandon, you didn't have to spend so many words on it when this book already has a word count problem.
Yeah, having trouble fitting, they were running into binding issues and
right.
No Ars Arcanum.
Yeah.
Which is funny because you'd think a book that goes into the spiritual realm stuff would be the one with the highest need for an Ars Arcanum.
I know.
I guess it depends on if Chris shows up in the spiritual realm or not.
She's just already there. Just what's up? Let me explain everything that would already be in the Ars Arcanum, but just in text.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's also maybe Chris is just embarrassed about some of the stuff she got wrong in previous Ars Arcanums about stuff like talking about the old magic. We're learning a lot of new stuff about that in this day that doesn't really track with what she's written in the past. So
Yeah.
Even Chris doing misinformation nowadays. Now let's get into deeper discussion. But before that, let's see what happened on day 2 anyway.
Well,
What's to summarize?
I mean, let's start with the interludes, I guess.
Yeah.
So interlude 1 is Kalak, which was really interesting. Because it turns out that Felt and Alla, not Rasarr, Alla the Sion, are ghost bloods. And they capture
Betrayal.
Kalak, which...
I feel so betrayed.
Come on, Alla.
I didn't even know I was a ghost blood.
Really funny.
Yeah, I mean, just the revelation that a Sion could be a ghost blood is wild. Obviously, it implies that the whole act of being sort of, I don't know, I got sort of like abused child vibes almost from Alla in the in Rhythm of War when she was set free from the box, but evidently that was all an act. So I guess props to her acting skills.
Yeah, which I guess means that Sions can lie and, be deceitful, which has some fun implications.
Yeah, definitely not like just parroting whomever their owner. If I don't know if Al even would have an owner, based on what we've seen.
One of the Ghost Bloods.
Kelsier,
maybe Felt. I guess she was talking like Mazer's using his own Sion to talk through her.
Yeah, maybe it is Felt's or one of the other Ghost Bloods.
Yeah, I mean, well, speaking of Felt, I guess it's not surprising that he's a Ghost Blood based on his origin, but it's surprising that he's a Ghost Blood.
Us. Brandon had said that Felt was just a random world hopper, which, I mean, we know Brandon has lied to us before.
I mean, admittedly,
this is surprising.
This is the kind of thing that he probably shouldn't be revealing in like a random wob, like about the book too.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
very, very justified lie.
And it does. I mean, I believe that this has been a theory for a little while that Felt's wife is a Kandra, and that is the Kandra world hopper that we have heard so much about. That the Kandra world hopper on Rasarr that we've heard so much about that.
Yeah, Waldo or however we.
Waldo.
Yeah, we've only gotten Raffod on. I'm not sure if this is further evidence for that or if it's just completely unrelated, but I mean, the fact that he was just hanging out with Dalinar for years is, I'm not sure if that implies that he was always a Ghost Blood or
because I
don't know what found out.
I don't know what purpose why the Ghost Bloods would want him hanging out with Dalinar for a while. I mean, it might have just been getting into the Kholein's good graces and like working way up the ranks type thing.
It might have also been like a sleeper agent thing, like find a good place, work up the ranks. We'll tell you when we actually need you.
Yeah, and I mean this is jumping ahead a little bit, but there is talk about the Ghost Bloods having someone close to Dalinar, and right now, obviously that's not Felt, but they definitely have a lot of agents who seem just sort of embedded in various places. Like they had Cabsol in the Ardentia. They Felt in Dalinar's crew.
Kind of makes me wonder just how long they've been on Rasarr.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, because I mean, at least as long as the prologue to Way of Kings, when I assume that there would be Ghost Bloods there.
Yeah.
Just trying to.
I mean, it had to be like
that's pretty likely.
Do we have confirmation if there was a Ghost Blood on the trip to the Shattered Plains? They gave this where Void's friend was given to Benley.
I think we know that like Axindwef was there.
Yeah.
Is she a Ghost Blood? I forget if that's confirmed or not.
I don't think we know.
We know if she's a Ghost Blood. We just know she's a world hopper.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe.
But, a lot of interesting implications from this.
Right.
From this one interlude that.
And that's like the first chapter of like a dozen.
Yeah. I do remember when this came out in the preview, it was like a real shift in sort of stakes. It felt. I was really excited to see this kind of stuff happening this early in the book.
Yeah. Plus, we find out that Felt is an Awakener, which is also interesting.
Oh right.
Yeah. Oh, right. And I guess it makes sense that Ghost Bloods would just sort of have breath. because breath travels well and it's useful.
There was one interesting phrase that I noticed is when Kalak is getting bound by the curtains or whatever it is. It says like the cloth fills his mouth, and it says it binds him like a constrictor from the old world, which is interesting because I don't think we've seen that mentioned. So I wonder if that's some sort of like ashen technology or something like that used
or maybe
to
has like boa constrictors.
Yeah,
it could be like a constrictor snake, true. Because I mean, I don't think that'd be any kind of urge type thing. It must be some sort of.
Yeah, I think that's just the way of saying it was snake-like.
And then Interlude 2 gets even more interesting because her POV is Odium, which, if this follows the structure of like the rest of the books, even if we're getting less interludes because we have more days, Odium will be our through-line character, which is really interesting because we technically had Taravangian in Rhythm of War, and, well, this is Vargodium. So, kind of repeat, kind of not repeat. I don't know, I'm very excited.
Yep.
If this turns out to be true.
Because it'll be interesting because we'll kind of have the two viewpoints, because I'm sure Taravangian has all sorts of stuff planned, because, you know, the coalition has all these plans for each battlefield, but I feel like Odium definitely has some big plot twist up his sleeve. So that might be really interesting if we know what his secret plan is, but, you know, the POV characters don't.
If he used the through line, then there would be 9 interludes, right? 9 Odium interludes.
Good point.
Yeah, Odium talks with cultivation, which in itself is really interesting. And like we learned that Taravangian still has this like kind of like split where like one half understands the powers of the shard and the other half is like overcome with passion, which is what Odium says it is. Also is interesting that cultivation doesn't seem to have that much influence on him, even if she's the one that like helped him as soon as he like ascended. And of course, in typical Odium fashion, he thinks that to fix the problems of the world, there must only be one shard on Rasarr.
Yeah, so he's pretty much, and he says that to her face, so he's kind of directly threatening her.
Yeah,
and I think at that point he just leaves.
Yeah, it sort of acts as a setup to a later chapter. That conversation with cultivation.
So then we get into day 2 proper, and we get a lot more POVs than we did in day 1, thankfully. So we have some quick like check-ins with Dalinar, with Yasna and Hoyd, with Navani, with Fen and Kamakal, and with Yanagon, which for those last two, like I love seeing Fen and Yanagon's points of view. It's so different. Like it's nice to see them get a little bit of screen time from what
and it's sort of a trend of day 2 where within a chapter we're swapping POVs pretty much every chapter between multiple characters, which generally is reserved for the end of a book, but we're doing it now in day 2, which I guess implies foreshadows some pacing, I guess, for the rest of the book.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense because there's definitely a lot going on. And I'm sure that'll continue through the other ones with all the different POVs we have to switch between and all the plot lines.
And so here we get the fact that Hoyd finally realizes that he has been like messed with by Vargodium in the epilogue of Rhythm of War. And they the coalition realizes that Odium has multiple armies and they are gunning for Kholinar and the Shattered Plains and Thaylen City and oh my god, what's the name of the Azish capital?
Azimir.
Azimir, thank you. So that definitely isn't good for anyone. We continue on, and we get a really cute scene with Shallan and Adolin just in the shower, which is kind of different for Brandon.
This book is like significantly like hornier than most of. I'm feeling like everything really Brandon wrote since like Warbreaker.
Right.
Maybe it's just cultivation's influence. She does show up in this chapter.
And yeah, we do leave off on the cliffhanger of Dalinar spotting cultivation in Urithiru and like going to talk to her, which he does in the next chapter. That's going to be a conversation we'll dig into later. But so Dalinar does that, and Shallan starts organizing the Unseen Court because she knows she has to go after Baido Mishram, and so they need some intel on the Ghost Bloods. Then we get Adolin and Yanagon, which I just love Adolin being so supportive of everyone.
Yeah, it was an unexpected pairing, but I think it worked. It had some insight into both characters that I appreciated.
Supportive of everyone except Dalinar.
Right.
He is extremely unsupportive of Dalinar.
Dalinar. And we get more of the unseen court looking for the Ghost Bloods, so not that notable. Oh, and then Chapter 18 gives us the reveal of what the loophole is, which we will rant about extensively. Right now is not the time. Let's get through the summary. But, But Hoyd uses all of this to deduce that Reyes has been replaced with someone. We don't know, well, the readers know, but the characters don't know who Reyes has been replaced with. They don't know who the new Odium is. Chapter 19, we get our first Szeth and Kaladin of this part, which is basically just them getting to Shinovar, not getting along very well. Pretty much. Chapter 20 switches back to the meeting. We get a lot of discussion of tactics and where Odium's armies are and all of that and more loophole stuff. And Dalinar not being a great dad. And so some people were theorizing about maybe Adolin being Odium's champion just because he isn't super agreeing with Dalinar.
At this point, Hoyd has pulled out his Tamukek, I believe, and is conversing with
Frost.
Someone. Or Frost.
Oh, no, not with Frost. With Frost's sister.
Yeah.
Frost's sister.
Yeah. Who's apparently a dragon lawyer.
Which I love.
Apparently, it is.
Oh, no. I'm not going to say that. Ignore me. Chapter 21, we have more Shallan preparing to, strike at the Ghost Bloods. We get some Sigil, which he kind of feels not super confident, which just knowing where Sigil as a character is going from Sunlit Man. It just kills me a bit.
Yeah.
Sigil. And then Dalinar, Navani, Yasna, Hoyd, and Fen meet in the plant room. And they have this discussion with the Mink. Basically, because the Mink wants to free Herdaz since Odium's new armies have switched up what the borders could be like. And he thinks it's a good idea to do it now.
Yeah. The Mink seems to have basically written off helping to fight Odium's forces and feels that he is owed a attempt to retake Herdaz from Dalinar's promise with him.
Yeah.
So he's calling that favor in.
Mm-hmm. The other notable thing about this chapter is that Dalinar gets explains the whole spiritual realm mission to everyone and considers ascending to honor and what that would mean, which that has implications for sure. We see more of Kaladin and Szeth in Shinovar, and Kaladin being completely astonished by what to us is very normal ecology. And Dalinar's conversation with the Stormfather, who considers that Dalinar ascending to honor is a bad idea. Then we get Shallan starting the infiltration of the Ghost Bloods, and Navani meeting Rushu, who gets confirmed as non-binary, and who shows domesticated flame spread, including everybody's favorite Bippy.
Bippy.
Which I love that you included the little illustration here in the outline.
Yeah, the Wind and Truth spoilers chat was just 90% Bippy for a few hours.
Yeah.
Then we get Szeth's first flashback, which I think we've covered in a previous episode when these were read originally.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Brandon read this flashback and the next flashback together.
A year ago.
Yeah.
So we have Shallan listening in on the Ghost Bloods meeting, and she sees Shaw not. Feltanalla's betrayal is revealed to her, and we get some Dalinar and Navani talking, but it's really the only notable thing is the hints of dissension and disagreement in the Ghost Blood ranks. However, Shallan gets discovered. It turns out that Mraize and or Yaddle are enlightened either will shapers or else callers. I'd put my bet on will shapers more likely, but we don't know for sure. And of course, Mraize has somehow gotten his hands on anti-stormlight, and they have some of that infused into a crossbow, which is very dangerous for Shallan.
Yep. She handles it pretty well, though, I have to say.
Yeah.
I was impressed by her quick thinking.
Yeah, especially because she hasn't like she just learned about what anti-storm light is because she's been off in lasting integrity for like Rhythm of War. Like just learned about like Navani's discoveries and whatnot.
Right.
We get Szeth's second flashback, which again we've already covered in conjunction with the first one. And then we get Shallan actually confronting Mraize and Yaddle, who escape, and a bit of Szeth and Kaladin, who like see the monastery in the distance, and it's like very like dark. It has this like bubble of dark over it, which I think is the illustration we got when Brandon was talking about like having finished the first like section of Wind and Truth way back when he was writing those Reddit updates.
That was one of like those two pieces of like concept art had made.
Yeah, along with the Dalinar one.
Yeah, Dalinar
I
walking
don't
up
think
to.
we haven't seen that scene yet.
No, I imagine that'll be
at the end,
sometime at the end. Yeah, based on the events of day 2.
Maybe he's gonna have like a chill chat in the first chapter of day 3. Who knows? And the right things have been moving.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I think that with the way this part finished up, like things are gonna start moving even faster. Which, speaking of, we get Lift chatting with Gavinor, which was really funny, and I do think that Brandon's writing of Lift has improved significantly. I don't know.
I enjoyed that chapter.
I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected with a Lift ending, and I don't hate Lift as much as most people. And we also get the AVR retcon, which people are frustrated about, but you know.
Yeah.
Then we get our first Renarin and Rlain POVs.
With a great icon.
Custom chapter icon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that chapter icon. It is so good.
Yeah, it's really good.
And for some reason, Renarin is like buff in this chapter.
He's wearing like a tank top or whatever.
He's got to show off the guns, yeah.
Renarin has a vision, and Rlain like goes into it. They talk about like what's in that vision, and like we'll probably break it down in more detail, so I'm not gonna talk about it now. But it's like really nice, and Renarin also talks to Drahi, who like has figured things out about Renarin and his sexuality. He offers to help Renarin like process, and if he needs anything, which is kind of adorable.
Unfortunately, then Shallan comes along.
Yep. Shallan comes to meet Renarin and Rlain, and they plan to go to where Dalinar and Avani are going to be opening the perpendicularity to like start testing all the like spiritual realm stuff. And Shallan reveals that she has 2 Sprin and that she accidentally joined the Ghostbloods. And Renarin's comment about this of like, the fact that this has been happening all along and you haven't told us until it's a problem. It just 10 out of 10 comment, Renarin. Seriously.
I think he says something
secret to be sharing this now.
Yeah, I think he says something to the effect of like, this is the most Shallan thing he'd ever heard. Of the idea that she accidentally joined like a world hopping organization that is trying to like steal a god functionally by stealing Biding Mishram.
And I also love the line of him getting confused about the different secret societies.
Yeah.
Like, why are there so many secret societies on Rasarr? Oh, yeah, Rlain.
Yeah, Rlain is like,
he's getting confused. The Sons of Honor. Yeah.
Renarin and Rlain have like so many great lines in these chapters.
I know.
There's also that one line later about like Renarin thinking that if he leaves, then Rlain will also leave, and then Shallan will be left with no common sense.
Yeah, that's great.
We also get the massive bomb that Hoyd was present for the Exodus from Ashen, and he still has a rock of like from Ashen in his possession, which.
And also apparently that's why Shin people worship rocks.
Oh yeah,
they just they remember they at some point they were worshiping rocks from Ashen, and I guess that evolved over time to just worshiping rocks. So it's just like a truth, something that he just said offhand, and Navani was gobsmacked and was like, well, I may tell them eventually, explain to them the origin of their millennia-old religion, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
And then we get this whole fight with Rlain, Shallan, the Windrunners, and their Spren fighting Mraize, Yaddle, Lieke, and I think those are it from the Ghostbloods. But Mraize, in typical Mraize fashion, collapses the perpendicularity with an anti-stormlight dagger, which isn't great.
Yep. We sort of, the rest of the chapter or the rest of the POVs in this area are just sort of
everyone getting sucked
fallout
in
from this. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of people who almost got sucked in, Lift was hiding and like spying on this whole thing, and she almost got sucked in, except Hoyd like took her. But because he listened to Lift earlier, Gavinor is also here. Because Lift is a fantastic example for a 5-year-old kid. And apparently Gav is sucked into the spiritual realm as well. So Hoyd says, okay, well, what's the solution here? Lift and me have to cosplay being Dalinar and Navani with Hoyd's light weaving powers, which is going to make for some great comedy later in the book.
I am looking forward to those.
We already got a little bit where Lopen, we already got a little bit where Lopen was like talking to Navani and was like, are you worried that people are missing? And it was Lift being Navani, and Lift was just chowing down, and Lopen was like, that was weird. I've never seen Navani eat that before, but
yeah.
That's great.
It's going to be great. On the other side of things, Kaladin is trying to make stew to like get Szeth to open up. And Kaladin thinks it is very bad. Szeth thinks it's okay, but Kaladin thinks the stew is very bad, which shows that he's been used to like eating with like a Michelin star restaurant, like someone said in our chat, for like how many years now. He plays this flute, it is also bad. Talks to the wind, and then we get the Shard jump scare. He just appears out of nowhere and talks with Kaladin about like how Szeth has this mission and how like Kaladin has to like help Szeth with this mission. Otherwise, Ishar won't even try to cooperate, which isn't great.
Kaladin attempts some quick therapy, but doesn't really work out.
Anywhere.
Yeah, he's like, I don't think that really worked, but at least he tried.
And that's basically the end of day 2.
So to sum up where we are at the end of day 2, Shallan, Renarin, Rlain, Dalinar, Navani, and Gavinor all got sucked into the spiritual realm.
Mm-hmm. And presumably they're Spren.
Yes, they're Spren.
Renarin, Rlain, and then Shallan Sprenner. There too, I guess.
I'm not sure if did Mraize and the Yatel go with?
I think they would have. I think everyone in that room who wasn't dead was sucked into the spiritual realm. Because Lieke, who was the random according to Hoyd, a Malwish person, not from, he could mean that someone of Malwish descent, but that was the third Ghostblood, and she was killed, or he was killed by, I think by a honor spren.
Yeah.
But I think everyone else is in the spiritual realm.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no sign of anyone else when Lopen visits.
Yeah.
So that group is all sucked into the spiritual realm. Hoyd and Lift are cosplaying Dalinar and Navani. Adolin and Yanagon are in Azimir.
Yes.
Or
they're going to
Azimir.
They're going there, yeah.
Yeah. And Kaladin and Szeth are chasing. I believe they are heading right now to Szeth's old home.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
To figure out
what
info they can use.
And Sigzil is still on the Shattered Plains.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that's everyone.
Yeah, I think. Lopen is going with the Bink. He's flying. Fast. Yasna is going to Thaylen City. Although I don't think she's left yet.
Her.
Yeah, I guess she'll take a Oathgate at some point to Thaylen City, but she was sort of assigned there. I believe that's everyone.
Yeah,
that's
everyone.
It's kind of really like showing how many characters are involved with this plot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
We haven't even gotten to Venli yet, or I imagine that'll be a big part of whatever Sigzil's up to. He'll have to at some point interact with Venli, Leshwi, the Chasm Fiends. And are there any other plot lines that we know are going to be happening that haven't been set up yet?
I don't think so. I think that's everything I am aware of. So that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a long day.
So let's start with the elephant in the room, the cousin wind in the room even. The contract, the loophole that Brandon has been teasing us with for years now. And what's the loophole? That Odium is going to take the capital cities of countries. This new and absolutely unprecedented plan that he totally hasn't done like 3 times already.
Yep. And the justification being that the contract that Dalinar made with Rays is governed by a Lethe legal system. Also, which is why, according to Hoyd, it's such a brilliant maneuver to take these capitals, because according to a Lethe law, apparently, if you capture the capital of the country, you control the country.
And you can't move the capital for some reason. Yeah,
Hoyd and I guess his liaison, who has become an expert on the Lethe law in about a few minutes, or that's probably exaggerated.
I mean, she's a dragon. I think she can do that.
Yeah. There are several apparently loopholes to this loophole that Hoyd has considered that just don't work, and we get to hear one of them, which is you can't move the capitals.
Yeah,
and
because only one side can take advantage of loopholes in the contract. Only Odium's allowed.
Well, to be fair, Hoyd does say we should try and find our own loopholes, but the obvious loopholes that everyone thought of when we read this chapter was immediately shot down.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be a loophole at some point that works out for Team Radiant, but we haven't figured it out yet.
The loopholes in the contract will appear whenever Brandon needs a plot convenience to speed things along.
Yeah, exactly. And there are a few other moments where we learn stuff about this contract for the Contest of Champions that wasn't made explicit. Like, for example, Hoyd talks about some provisions about, because Dalinar is stuck in the spiritual realm by his own actions, even though Murray's popped the perpendicularity. But basically, if Dalinar doesn't make it back, he forfeits, which will set Odium, not just declare Odium the winner, or it wouldn't declare Odium the winner, it would forfeit, which would mean that Odium is just set free. Because the original provisions was if Odium wins, he wouldn't be free in the Cosmere. But I guess forfeiting has a different endgame than Odium winning. So
we got even higher stakes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I know that is just.
Yeah. I know that. Yeah. I mean, I think that another issue with this whole setup is it sort of changes what we contradicts what we thought we knew about how Shardic agreements in general work.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because as we I guess took Ray's on face value that he had to follow the spirit of the contract. But according to what Hoyd says, once the vessel changes, that's no longer necessarily true. And so Taravangian is not bound to follow the spirit of the law or spirit of the contract, which is kind of confusing based on what because we thought we understood that shards were bound by sort of the spiritual aspect of a contract, which makes sense because they're spiritual beings. But evidently that's not the case.
Which, it's frustrating because we've spent 4 years theorizing about this since Rhythm of War came out, and obviously Brandon needed those 4 years to write this book, but it's disappointing because we've put so much thought into it, and we've come up with other options that could be better in some ways, and it just feels kind of a cop-out of, well, the contract will have whatever is needed for the plot to move along the way Brandon intended it to.
Yeah, I can get how it's convenient plot-wise.
It's a bit convenient.
It's also kind of disappointing because it doesn't really introduce any new factor.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's be like I said before, we've already had plot lines. The big finale of book of Oathbringer was that Odium was trying to take Violent City. Oathbringer also had Odium taking Kholinar, and Rhythm of War had Odium fighting in the Azish Empire, and Odium trying to take the tower Urifuru. So, Odium wants to take the capital city of the enemy kingdom is not exactly a groundbreaking plotline.
Yeah, it's let's take the strategy we already used, but do it like to 5 countries at once, basically.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are attacking isn't part of the loophole. Dalinar was very, he understood, and he actually planned on doing his own attacking, because the sort of understanding was you try to grab as much territory as you can before their borders are frozen with the contest. But this sort of justification that we are getting for why Odium is attacking the capitals seems superfluous.
It's just, I don't know. I was hoping for something like actually clever.
Yeah. I mean, I know that people are saying that this isn't really the loophole. There may be more loopholes, which I'd be fine with if it's a good loophole. But if the whatever the real loophole is good, it feels like this is sort of changing what we thought we knew for the sake of changing things.
Mm-hmm.
When
for the sake of having
hears,
like a more interesting plot.
Yeah, I mean, and as Ola said, like Odium already would, it's fine if Odium just wants to attack capitals. He's done that without needing Raze has done that without having the justification of the contract.
The loophole.
Yeah.
It's still going to do a lot of damage if you just take out all the capitals and just control the capitals.
Yeah, because I mean,
that worked fine.
Everywhere that
is hard.
Yeah, and everywhere that is being attacked has an oath gate. So just by virtue of having an oath gate, it's valuable. Especially because, as we see in I believe it's in day 2, or it's maybe in day 1, where we see that the oath gate sprint can be. Yes,
the final chapter of day 1.
Even though the sibling is awake, that doesn't necessarily mean that an oath gate is automatically on Team Radiant's side. And so Odium definitely would benefit from having oath gates in his territory, whether or not they're the capital city comes along with a country. But
right.
Let's get on to more interesting discussion, though. Instead of ranting, all the fun stuff that happened.
We'll talk about Shallan.
Yeah, we can talk about Shallan.
Yeah, Shallan is having like her own, like, it's not like a heist movie plot line, but like, infiltration, that's the word. She's having her own little like infiltration plot line. It's kind of funny because like you see from like the point of view of Shallan herself, like she's still super uncertain. She's still like figuring things out as she goes along and trying to like outwit Raze and the Yatil. And meanwhile, from the POV of like Renarin and Rlain, Shallan is like, hello, I'm the main character. Now, come along, you bastards. We've got a job to do.
Basically.
I definitely liked like the Shallan stuff that we got in day 2. Both her interactions with Adolin, that was nice. But then the stuff that she was doing with showing that she had developed like a rapport with all of the Lightweavers, which is sort of hinted at in Rhythm of War. We saw a little bit of it as she was trekking through Shazemar with some of her members of the Unseen Court, but I think because of a lot of the personal stuff that she was going through, we didn't really get to see much that kind of interaction or camaraderie or anything, because she was suspicious of everyone being a spy for a lot of that that storyline, whereas now she's trusting, she's leading a competently run operation, mostly competently run. We also got some neat Ghostblood stuff, so that was all fun.
Yeah, some sort of possibly dragon egg on the trophy shelf, or some form of strange stone egg.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a greater dragon egg because we know they give birth in human form,
right?
Thanks to Wobbs. But probably one of those minor dragons Brandon has mentioned before, or maybe a Shodel egg is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I don't remember if we got a good idea of the size.
I don't remember.
We did. I know there were a lot of memes going on about it being Lift. Lift in the dragon egg, and she's gonna hatch in the spiritual realm or something.
Yeah, I think most of the other things that we got there were stuff that we had a pretty good idea of what those were, except there was the flower that was
the leaf.
That leaf, and probably not a tear of Edgley.
I don't think the description quite matched.
It was like smoke. It was like giving off heat, so that doesn't give Edgley vibes.
Someone pointed out that Brandon released a story notebook that included some prompts for world building stuff, and one of the prompts in that notebook was like a planet where you need to use plants to generate heat or something along those lines. So
Yeah.
it could just be an Easter egg. It could be something in the Cosmere that we just aren't aware of yet. But it was a nice callback to the original Mraize trophy case, or I guess we now learned it's Yaddle's trophy case.
Right.
From Words of Radiance.
But yeah, so Shallan ends up crushing that party altogether. So her stuff now, if she comes back alive from the spiritual realm.
I mean, I could see the other Ghostbloods like coming back to the hideout and like retrieving valuable stuff because they kind of left in a hurry.
I think that the way it worked out was everyone who didn't else call out of there was captured because they ran into like a side passage.
Yeah.
But then there was fighting, and then later Shallan talks about leaving a bunch of people behind to take care of the captives. So I think that all of the Ghostbloods who were there were captured, other than Mraize, Yaddle, and Like.
Which is kind of funny because like now they have to deal with like a bunch of captives with like unknown other abilities from elsewhere in the Cosmere.
Idea what this is going on.
Yeah.
I do wonder if we're going to see them at all again.
I mean, it's definitely possible, depending on what abilities they have, that they could totally break free of captivity when the Radiants aren't paying attention.
And I mean, they're in
what abilities they have.
Yeah, are they in the war camps or they're in the war camps, right? So Odium's got an army sweeping through there, so they may just be set free when everyone needs to get
happens there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we'll see them again, but we got a few new Mraize nicknames. Although I think Little Knife is probably still the best Mraize nickname.
Yes,
I didn't like the other ones.
Speaking of like Shallan getting stuff, like she has armor spread now. I think they won?
Yes, we saw her have armor spread when she met with Kaladin. In day one. But we saw that they wasn't very good at being armor in that scene. In this scene,
it's improving.
Yeah, it's improving. It's getting better.
It's kind of funny that like the one time like she needed to be armored because someone was shooting at her was also the one time she could not be armored because her armor is, as far as anti-light goes, her armor is made of explodium.
Right. Yeah. It was also interesting to see her use it somewhat more offensively to, I believe she gags like the Ghostblood member that she impersonates before she infiltrates the group. She's able to use it to lock that Ghostblood's jaw in place, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's also one of the captives that they have. So if they have any captive, I hope that they hold on to this Southern Skadrian woman because if nothing else, then because I'm sure they'll be really confused by why she's speaking Dutch or whatever language it is they're speaking. Right. We mentioned in the summary there's some dissension in the Ghostblood ranks. It seems that Mraize is potentially sort of doing his own thing right now, and his underlings are sort of questioning how this follows Thaidakar's plan, and Yaddle also talks about seems to have her own motivations, and
it kind of tracks with the way Kelsier was keeping Yaddle's brother like really close to him in the Lost Meadow, because he doesn't trust them, and like he made some offhand comment about the Ghostbloods and Rasarr there. So like this, I think, is just an extension of that, of like these factions getting kind of more separate.
You'd think that someone with like Kelsier's pedigree would be better at running a criminal organization, but it turns out Ghostbloods are just kind of a mess. He's not leading them. Like he doesn't really have them in hand very well.
It's interesting because supposedly one of the main principles of being in his crew is trusting each other, no betrayals, all that. But doesn't seem everyone really prescribes to that standard as much.
It is kind of funny because like the Skadrian Ghostbloods are like, we're all friends here and we work together and we help each other. And meanwhile, like the Rasarr Ghostbloods are just like 2 steps away from clawing each other's throats out.
I guess it does sort of parallel Era 1. Kelsier had his crew, and then he had the army, which was sort of doing its own thing. And every so often he'd have to go over there. And like at one point he had to kill a guy to keep everyone in line, where he used the steel pushing iron pulling to rig a fight. But I guess because of his current affliction, he can't jaunt over to Rasarr and kill a guy to keep everyone in line. Right. So it's sort of falling apart.
So you're probably more likely to follow Kelsier's rules if Kelsier is on the planet with you, watching over your shoulder to make sure you get along.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think the Rasarr and Ghostbloods would be acting this way if Kelsier was on Rasarr, watching them physically.
And, like, Kelsier's like force of personality is a thing that works much more in terms of like close contact, because it's just his charisma and like what he radiates, like his presence, instead of just like what he says. You know, it's Kelsier himself that makes people act that way.
This kind of does make me wonder, because now that we know that like Ayla, my terrible namesake, is my treacherous betrayal. Really, Brandon. Anyway, now that we know that Ayla works for the Ghostbloods, I kind of wonder, like, is the Sion that was speaking with Gavilar in the prologue, like the one that Kelsier was speaking through? Do you suppose that was Ayla or some other Sion?
I don't know.
Like that.
Definitely could be.
Yeah, because
there's probably not too many of them.
It could be that Kelsier felt that things were going wrong, and so he sent, like, he has like his own, like, a personal agent in Felt and Ayla, sort of trying to get things on track, or at least specifically do what he wants, because he knows that not everyone else on Rasarr is doing what he wants. I'm not sure how the timeline will work out for that, but I'm sure that we'll see Mraize and Yaddle again at some point, and hopefully get some clarification.
Yeah, they are in the spiritual realm, so that's gonna be a fun run-in whenever that happens.
Yeah, I'm very curious how that'll work, like with the next chapter with them. Or are they all just, just going to resume fighting instantly if they all, because presumably they might all be together.
I think it'd be interesting I think it'd be interesting, if we get some shuffling of groups, because it's like Dalinar and Navani went into the spiritual realm together, supposedly, or seemingly, and maybe Gav went with them, but it could be that like Dalinar ends up in his own spot, and Navani's with Gavinor, or who knows, like could shuffle up some who's where, because it's a spiritual realm. Who knows?
Imagine it would be weird.
Imagine if like Dalinar wakes up and he ends up with like Mraize and the Yaddle.
Oh my god! I'm kind of curious to see what Dalinar's going to think about Gavinor being there.
Oh boy!
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about Gavinor
now? Oh man. Yeah, there's a very cursed theory that with spiritual realm time shenanigans, Gavinor is going to grow up very rapidly, and maybe he's all grown up by the time they exit, and then he's Odium's champion. Is one thing
I hate it.
I don't like it.
Yeah, there's been a lot of
baby champion theory. So
is it a baby if he's like 18?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's been like the first appearance of Gavinor in the book. He was like red-eyed. I mean, he had been crying or something.
Oh yeah.
But it was described as red-eyed, and I think at some point a vision of Odium's champion has red eyes, and there's some crumbs that people who are so inclined are grabbing onto.
I hate it.
I think even if he's grown up, the death rattle about holding like crying child in your arms and the whole world wants you to slit its throat, I feel like that would probably still apply even if he's grown up.
Yeah, I'm sure that's almost entirely metaphorical in terms of describing who is going to get their throat slit and the throat slitting itself. I'm sure that's all metaphorical. But
yeah, like I don't really like it, but at the same time, because like Brandon has set up like two things about the spiritual realm and time. And that's the first thing that we put more attention on, is that you can spend like a day in the spiritual realm and then you come out to find out that it's been like a year outside of it, which like makes sense to put in as a warning. It's like, this is the problem of the contract, because if Dalinar really does like spend a year, then he misses the deadline. So it makes sense that Hoyd warns them about this. But then he also mentions that it could be reverse, that like they spend a year inside, but only day passes outside. And like, I don't know what this could be except for like foreshadowing that someone is going to get aged up in the spiritual realm.
One thing that the contract is very clear on is that the champions must be willing. And even if Gavinor is aged up to be who knows how old. I don't see him being willing to be Odium's champion. Although there's definitely a lot of interpretation as to what willing actually means.
What if Taravangian convinces Gavinor that he's finally getting to do the sword fighting practice that Gavinor has wanted to do this whole book? He's like, when is Grandpa going to do sword fighting practice with me? And Odium just convinces him that it's just for practice.
Oh no!
And
no, that's so cursed. Will
remember that even if for Dalinar only 9 days pass, it's not like Gavinor is going to be actually aging faster from his own perspective. He is, if aging up Gavinor is, then he is from his own subjective perspective going to spend a dozen years living in the spiritual realm. And we've heard described of the spiritual realm is that it's going to mess with your brain just being there. So imagine spending 12 years in this, space-time unstable.
The closest we see is Lift sees her mother.
Yeah.
And she also sees a sort of alternative version of herself. Lift sees an alternate version of herself where, I assume her mother didn't die or abandon her or whatever happened there. It seems like if you're not careful, you can get really, Gavinor seeing, his dad die a million times or whatever, Brandon could come up with a bunch of stuff to subject Gavinor to if there is this age up thing. He could come up with a million things to have Gavinor go through that would maybe make him dislike Dalinar or think that Odium winning is good or who knows. But I think that it's possible, but I just don't really, it's too baby champ for me.
Imagine if Taravangian disguises himself as Elokar and starts talking to Gavinor in the spiritual realm.
Oh no! Oh no! No!
He's been talking to Gavinor for 12 years, just constantly in his mind, telling him things.
Yep. Yeah, there are a few sort of spiritual realm visions that I'm sort of anticipating or thinking might happen. One that I'm almost certain will happen is Dalinar will talk with some spiritual shadow or something of Gavilar.
Seems
because
that would be
I think that we know that Gavilar is a bad guy. Dalinar has heard intimations from Navani, but sort of ignored it back in Wave Kings. Or Where's Freedom? I don't remember which, but Navani was like, your brother wasn't such a good guy, and Dalinar just sort of shuts her down. And so there's also the Dalinar is considering ascending. Gavilar was sort of thinking similar things. And so I think having some heart-to-heart where Dalinar sort of confronts, you could sort of think of Gavilar as an alternate version of Dalinar. If he took different life choices or something. I think that something like that is bound to happen, honestly.
I like that.
But I wasn't expecting so many people to be in the spiritual realm to potentially have cool, weird visions. So we knew that Renarin and Rlain were going to be doing spiritual realm stuff. We knew that Shallan was going to be hunting Bottom Ishram. So, I mean, there's always Chana Devar, that potential reveal that has to happen at some point, maybe. Which now that Shallan's in the spiritual realm, there's a perfect time for her to see things.
Oh no!
I don't know if
she sees a vision of Chana and goes, "Oh, that's my mom."
Well,
that'd be so cursed. I hope not.
There is that idea, Hoyd gave Shallan drawings of all the heralds, and Shallan didn't recognize Shallan as her mother, but who knows? I mean,
fair point.
I think that one way or another, Shallan's mother's identity is going to come out. It has to be significant, I think, at this point.
Yes, Shallan's past is basically like a matryoshka with new layers of secrets every time. So look forward to 10 new secrets of Shallan's past releasing in this book.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess the spiritual realm does serve a very useful purpose for Brandon, where there are characters that need to go through some character development that wouldn't fit into 10 days. So like Renarin and Rlain, if they get some timey-wimey stuff, they could spend some more time together, and we could get a more developed relationship. That could be positive. We could get a more developed relationship. Shallan needs to go through some things with her revelations about her past, and that may take some time for her to deal with. So, if Brandon wants, he could make them all go through years and years of character development.
You know what else I'm curious about? How Adolin is going to react to the fact that Shallan just ended up in the spiritual realm.
Yeah, I think right now Hoyd's plan is just not tell anyone.
Right.
That'll be interesting if we get Hoyd as Dalinar interact, because Adolin hasn't left yet, I don't think.
So right.
Interact.
That's
it.
Be
what if
Shallan
Shallan is pregnant and she's in the spiritual realm for 9 months?
Yeah, that was what I was thinking too. Like, there's been a lot of flags of her potentially being pregnant.
Really? I've kind of missed every one of them.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, a lot is an exaggeration, but there's been some. It's like people have brought it up as a theory. There
have been a lot of flags about Adolin. I mean, there are a lot of Adolin death flags, which Shallan being pregnant would add some gut punches to Adolin's potential death.
Don't bring this into existence.
I'm like, please, Adolin, don't die. Please, Adolin, don't die. But
I definitely got that vibe.
That sometimes crossing my fingers super hard and praying doesn't always work. But I'm hoping and praying that Adolin doesn't die.
I feel like there's that one scene where it's Kaladin, Shallan, and Adolin. I think in Azamir, and they say something about like, promise me that after all this is done, the three of us will all go get a drink together. Yeah. And just the wording of that scene definitely made me think one of these three is going to die, at least.
Well, I have some theories about what's going to happen to Kaladin, but yeah.
I don't think Kaladin is going to die, but we already discussed this on part 1, and this episode is getting long enough without rehashing all of that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that the spiritual realm, sort of put a bow on it, I guess, it definitely has a lot of potential to do a lot of interesting stuff with the people. I mean, right now, I guess it's speculation that Shallan, basically everyone other than Dalinar and Vonnie are in the spiritual realm, but I think that that's definitely the implication. And at some point they have to go in there.
Yeah, how else would they go in there if they don't have any bondsmith to open the way now? So
yeah, I think it's fairly certain they're there.
Speaking of other people who are moving to spiritual realm for the rest of the book, Renarin, finally, canon. Renarin
I am so
Rlain.
happy.
Yeah, and I think handled very, very well. It has to. I mean, we had some hints at it, but Brandon at some point has to acknowledge that it's happening, and I think that he did it pretty well.
I love the icon is really good.
Yeah,
the chapter icon art.
Yeah.
Look, not even Shallan and Adolin got their own couple chapter icons.
They have separate ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to have Isaac, I think Isaac does the chapter icons, or it could be Ben McSweeney.
And Ben McSweeney.
Yeah, if they're going to have art commissioned for this, then it has to work out, right?
I think the fact that they are sharing one does imply that they'll probably be together in the spiritual realm. Like some people might be mixed up.
Definitely, yeah.
But I feel like because they have the same one, they're probably going to be together for whatever shenanigans are happening in the spiritual realm.
Yeah, they might only. I do wonder what's going to happen with its chapter icon, in the back half, but,
Because, did Renarin have his own chapter icon in previous books?
No.
And I think the Rlain POVs were just using the Bridge 4 icon.
The Bridge 4 patch, yeah.
But yeah, they are they're not a couple yet, but they are shaping up to be a very cute couple.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon has some history with some not so great sort of meet cutes and setting up couples, but I thought they had a lot of chemistry just in their conversation they had in the chapter where they entered the vision, and then also in the conversation, sort of how they interacted in the Shadesmar sequence.
And it is nice to get Renarin POVs that aren't just him freaking out over visions, even if he does end up freaking out over visions later. But let's say the normal mode Renarin, as it were. It's nice. And
the way Gliss is able to help him not be so overwhelmed and all that support is really nice.
Yeah, the vision was also very interesting because we have some sort of vision of, I think it was Renarin on some sort of singer throne or something like that.
He was sitting on a throne in his room in Kholinar, not in the throne room, but in his own personal room.
There's something about singer clothing though, right?
Yeah,
he
the
was
clothing
wearing
he's
similar
wearing.
clothes.
Yeah.
Which, obviously foreshadowing of his upcoming marriage to Rlain. Clearly. Like, what other option could there be?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every vision that we're shown, based on precedent from Oathbringer, it's stuff that could happen. But it's not like super metaphorical. It's like generally pretty literal in terms of what you see. Yeah. It's just, it may or may not happen.
Which is kind of interesting to me because he is sitting on the throne, but he's also like in his own room, which in bedrooms, not typically throne rooms.
Right.
Yeah, I honestly am not sure how to parse it.
I have no idea how to interpret any of this, but it's very interesting.
He's collecting Warhammer minifigs.
I mean, if we're going through the visions and we don't have any other speculations about this, the next one that they see is a darkened building storm, and Rlain is pretty confident that it's the Everstorm, but he's confused as to why it's in the vision because they already know that the Everstorm is a thing, and certainly been some speculation about what this actually is.
Yeah, I do wonder. I think with the Wind and Truth cover, I mean, there is this kind of like depiction of like these two storms, like the two storms clashing. So I do wonder, and it probably has something to do with that. There might be some storm shenanigans happening with the contest, but I have no idea what that could be.
I think that I don't know if Punny on the Discord originated this theory or not, but I definitely associate it with them. But the idea that at the end of Wind and Truth, there will be instead of a high storm circling Rasarr, there will be just an Everstorm sort of blanketing the planet.
Okay.
Or something like it's like, the Stormfather dies, the high storm goes away, there's a forever Everstorm or something. But I think some escalation of the Everstorm is definitely foreshadowed by this. The idea of like a new barrier storm around Rasarr instead of Braze. I believe there's references to Rasarr being cut off or something along those lines in The Lost Metal.
Yes.
It's unclear what exactly that means, but I think that this,
It does also remind me of like an older theory that because we have a storm for honor and a storm for odium, that there's going to be like a cultivation
third storm.
The storm that goes, because there's one that goes this way, one that goes this way, and then there's one that like goes this way or something. I think I remember.
Yes, I don't know.
But I mean, that's like a life storm or something that would be.
I guess Rasarr will just stop putting windows in their houses altogether.
There is a really interesting death rattle that goes with like the Eternal Everstorm thing. Let's see. It's the light grows so distant, the storm never stops. I am broken, and all around me have died. I weep for the end of all things. He has won. Oh, he has beaten us. Which I feel like would definitely match pretty 1-to-1 with Odium winning and Eternal Everstorm.
Yeah. I liked that the characters were sort of confused as to why they were seeing this.
Speaking of being confused, they're also pretty confused at the vision of Dalinar standing on a cliff with a golden figure who they think is Tanavast, with the city collapsing in the background.
And they've read Dalinar's accounts of his visions, and so they say, "Oh, that's Dalinar watching Kholinar collapse in one of his Stormfather visions. Why is it here?" And I'm also like, "Why is this here?"
Yeah,
because there's supposedly only visions of the future, right?
Yes,
not the past.
I kind of
Renarin says it's visions of the future.
I wonder if like Dalinar being in the spiritual realm, where this is like this whole like mess of time, if that's not messing with Renarin's visions. Because like you are trying to look into the future, but what about a person who is just jumping through moments in time?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But, we could speculate until the cows go home, but on like when this falls on the timeline. But I have also another question. Who do you think is the golden figure?
Well, it is certainly annoying that Tanavast and Odium share a penchant for gold robes.
Yeah.
I could definitely see Dalinar at some point getting into this vision and being like, "Oh, I've been here before," and then maybe this is where Taravangian reveals himself as being the new Odium.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It could also just be, I mean, we also know that we're going to be seeing, there's going to be more Tanavast stuff in this book.
Yeah.
Because there's implications that Cultivation is unwilling to expand on, that Tanavast did some stuff. Also, Tanavast didn't, Honor is not shattered or splintered, sorry.
Yeah.
And that was a reveal. And so there's definitely some stuff up with Tanavast. So this could be just Dalinar redos this vision, but he's talking to the real Tanavast or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Though, now that you've mentioned that like possibility of Dalinar and Gavilar talking, I'm kind of wondering if maybe this is like, Gavilar, but like Gavilar from the possibility where he does manage to ascend, maybe.
Oh, huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There'd definitely be some symbolism with them watching Kholinar fall. They're both Kholins.
Yeah.
So many spiritual realm shenanigans. Like,
it
was hard to figure out this like spiritual mumbo jumbo like 3 years ago or whenever that episode of Shardcast came out. I think it was even before video. We're definitely gonna need an update after this.
Yeah, I think whoever's gonna be writing the spiritual realm article for the Cocomite is really gonna be feasting this book.
Feasting or crying?
Possibly both. So, moving on with the visions, we have like 2 more. So there is the 12 people in a peaceful green field, which we do have like pointed out as notable. There is a Horn-Eater person, a Horn-Eater person, a Makabaki person, and someone who's blue.
Yeah, who they're very quick to point out is not an Amian or from Natan. Or sorry, I don't know if they mentioned that an Amian, but they definitely say that's not someone from Natan. It's the wrong color blue.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is a blue individual who is in Shinovar right now who potentially has some meeting in her future.
10 out of 10 fun.
Thank you. But we know that Honor's friend who undergo Ishar's physical transition stay blue.
Yeah.
Obviously, it could just be Syl manifesting as a full-grown person. We know that she does that now. Doesn't have to be her in the physical realm. But I think that it's almost certain that that's Syl.
I honestly I feel like maybe Renarin should have recognized Syl because, I mean, he's been with Bridgefor for a while. He should have seen her at some point.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I'm not putting it past Brandon to just say that Renarin didn't see close enough to recognize because he wants to preserve the drama of who could this blue person be?
And I mean, speaking of the other 11 people, if you add up Syl, Kaladin, Szeth, and then the 9 heralds who are alive, that's 12.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Although,
so the Makabaki person could very easily be Nail, right? But who's the Horn-Eater in that group?
That's sort of where I get stuck up on it too, because Shauna has red hair, so you could mistake her for a Horn-Eater. But I think there's something like in the Spanish translation, it's a male Horn-Eater. I don't know how much weight to put in that.
Oh,
in the Spanish translation, they'd know who it is and they'd put the right pronoun because I don't think we've gotten to the point where the neo pronouns are that ingrained that they just use the neutral one. That's not going to happen in a translation like this.
I didn't know there was a translation of the previous coming out.
I could have just read that on What Spoilers and be making stuff, mindlessly repeating it.
While you look that up, the other vision we had is Baido Mishram. She shows up and she is not very happy.
Yep, that's her default mood nowadays.
I mean, but she definitely scares Renarin and Rlain. Rlain recognizes her. Rlain knows that this is Baido Mishram. But let me see if I can.
So far, it seems like a really great idea to set her free.
Yep.
She seems to just love humans.
That's totally not going to backfire on anyone.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I found where I read someone saying there was the Spanish translation, but I can't find the Spanish translation on the internet. So.
Okay. Is there anything else we want to say about the visions?
Yeah, I was gonna find the. I'm just gonna read the whole segment. Rlain gazed past Renarin towards the end of their hallway, and was surprised to see a window there, shadowed in the darkness. No light shone through it, so he missed it. What is that? Rlain said, walking closer. It depicted only a face, a simple face with intricate patterns, black and red and swirling. A singer, female in, against the black background etched in glass, staring at him. Then it moved. Rlain jumped. In fits and jumps, the image split, multiple versions of the face moving, raging, the eyes going wide, the rhythm of agony shaking the frame. Windows around them cracked, but the one in the center kept vibrating, her face shuddering back and forth, and her hands against the edges of the window, curling, bulging out, as if trying to break free. Renarin screamed as the windows to the left and right shattered, exposing a dark wasteland. New windows grew up like veins, crystallizing and exploding, leaving jagged stumps. But before they broke, Rlain could pick out images, burning cities, broken bodies. Above it all, a rising rhythm of agony, with the female and singer's words echoing to the sound. I will break it all.
No.
And then Rlain explains that it was agony and that he thinks it's by Adom Ishram.
He says that the rhythm of agony is something that you can only do if you're odium aligned.
Yeah, so she's definitely having a good time, and it's going to be of no consequence to release her.
Yeah, it's sort of similar to how she's sort of ranted and raved to Shallan in day one.
Yeah.
Talking about killing all humans or something like that.
Yeah, it's the world will burn until the last human draws breath or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is
super cheerful.
Yeah, it's also kind of interesting that she seems to have this ability to infiltrate visions and get into wherever people get too close to the spiritual stuff. Because you know what just came to me? Because all along, from the very beginning of the series, we've been told that seeing the future is of odium and you shouldn't be doing it. What if people who have been trying to use magic to see the future have all been getting a face full of Adom Ishram every time they tried? Or maybe not every time, because this is the first time it's happened to Renarin, but if your ability to see the future comes with a free serving of an unmade that wants to tell you how much she hates you,
is ranting about killing all the humans. Yeah,
it's sort of the fact that she's able to do this at all, given the fact that she's supposedly trapped in a gemstone in the spiritual realm, and being trapped severed the connections that she I believe that it severed the connections she has to singers, and yet she's still able to. So I guess the fact that when you're doing a vision or something, you're sort of reaching towards her so she can reach a little bit towards you and meet, whereas I guess the connections that she had formed with Rasarr itself were too non-spiritual for her to be able to reach out at the gemstone.
I mean, I wonder how that'll work with everyone in the spiritual realm. Are they just gonna every other hour is by or Mishram just gonna appear in their minds and be burn?
Oh God!
They're trying to sleep and by or Mishram's just what's up?
I do hope that Adom Ishram turns out to be a bit less ruiny. Yeah, because she's very similar to Ruin right now to me, where although Ruin had sort of some interesting aspects that were revealed over time of the conflict between destruction and trying to hold it back, and Addie's personality and stuff. So I hope that we get more nuance to Adom Ishram.
Imagine if
she doesn't want to destroy everything. Okay.
True.
Imagine if Gavinor runs into her. You could have
oh God, poor Gavinor. Poor boy,
everything,
so
everything bad possible
already.
Everything bad that could happen will happen to Gavinor. I for one welcome his new adoptive mom, Adom Ishram, hater of humans.
There was an interesting moment where Gavinor was scared of the sibling, because he had seen her in her like her full like manifestation, and it freaked him out. Navani was sort of like, well, you know, she has laundry facilities and she's trying to help us. And Gavinor was like, okay. And he didn't seem really sold on the idea that the sibling was or sorry, I believe I said she. The sibling is they have like laundry facilities in them that are, you know, shipping laundry around. But Gavinor did not seem to buy it. And he's also, I think, seemingly traumatized by Glory Spren. There was a moment where Navani had to like, shoot Glory Spren away from him. I think because Elhokar drew Glory Spren to him before he died.
I mean, there's also there's the corrupted, I don't remember which Spren it was specifically, but there was like all the,
I think it was
the weird
Spren.
Yeah.
The one that was tormenting him that Kaladin had to,
Right. So he might just have this general like fear of Spren in general.
Man, like having a Spren phobia must be like the worst kind of phobia to have on Rasarr.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be in Shinovar, I guess.
Yeah, true. Maybe that's how like Gavinor's plotline ends. He ages up in the spiritual realm and then just goes to Shinovar, never to be seen again. So one last note on like Renarin and Rlain before we move on to the next topic. I do like how Rlain he's and Renarin's point of view kind of highlight that humanity is not really like at their best. When they mention that like Rlain is helping humans despite the fact that a lot of them like outright distrust him, or how Rlain calls out the fact that no, it's not just the fact that the Honor Spren, you know, didn't like him personally. Like, how come he's the only member of Bridgeford that didn't become a Windrunner? You know, that kind of thing. So I did appreciate like those little call-outs, because I think we had too little of that ever since Kaladin became a Light Eyes.
Yep. Yeah, and I think Navani also mentioned, she had like an offhand mention somewhere in this part about sort of saying, you know, once all this is over, you know, there's probably going to be trouble with the High Princes because Dark Eyes are getting more and more social standing and stuff, which potentially signaling stuff in the back half, I guess. But I'm glad that Renarin and Rlain are sort of addressing this stuff more explicitly, specifically like the
social the class divide in Rasarr will come back when it becomes plot relevant.
Yep.
when we need to start a new arc. Do
we want to talk about Lift by herself? Anything? Okay, so
first of all, the whole bird thing is a retcon, which frustrates me, but yeah, whatever. But I do think in general, like I mentioned earlier, that Brandon's Lift writing has gotten smoother. Like, she feels less different isn't the word, but less annoying than she was before, while still keeping her personality. I mean, maybe part of that is her maturing a bit. Maybe it is the way she's interacting with Gavinor, which I thought was really nice. You know, her being supportive of him and like his friendship, and like giving him something to hang on to. Poor traumatized child.
Imagine if, because she's in the spiritual realm too, imagine if like we get like Gavinor champion, but also Lift is the one to talk him down.
I mean, her edge dancer-ness, you know, I think she demonstrated it with Gavinor in her chapter. I'd really hope that we see her do that some more in the book. I don't want to wait until the Lift book to get her be doing a bunch of edge dancer stuff, because she's done a bunch of Lift stuff throughout the series so far. But her being an edge dancer is sort of, I feel like it's taken the back seat a lot of the time we get a Lift chapter.
Yeah.
I did enjoy, kind of saw it coming, but, you know, her teaching Gavinor, like, it's okay to do the wrong thing sometimes. And then he follows her to go spy on Dalinar and Navani, and he quotes her right back to her face. He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to get in trouble for corrupting, you know, the starving prince.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that in the back half, she will sort of like the cohort of like younger characters that have sort of built up with like Oridon, hopefully Gavinor. Like Lift is sort of going to be the leader of them, I think, just partially by virtue of being the oldest of them, but also just sort of because it feels like she has definitely matured a lot. Yeah, I mean, I hope that she has some more interesting stuff to do.
Yeah.
I am very much looking forward to her impersonating Navani, because she is very, very far from Navani personality-wise.
It's going to be so good.
I give it like 15 seconds before either Jasnah or Adolin figure out what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that the sibling is like just not talking to anyone. I mean, I guess it makes sense the sibling isn't talking to anyone, but I mean, I guess the sibling is just sort of scared, maybe. They don't want to draw attention to the fact that Navani isn't there anymore, maybe. But it's interesting that for one reason or another, the sibling is upholding the lie.
Yeah, and I do think that I expect that Wit and Lift will reveal to the main characters that they are disguised, because Jasnah is gonna figure out pretty much instantly. Yeah.
And like Adolin, actually no, Adolin like probably wasn't planning on talking to Dalinar before leaving.
Oh, what if Oid tries to give them a good send off? I don't think that Oid would do that.
Probably
I don't think that's the kind of guy he is, to like just straight up try and fabricate a nice moment for Adolin. But
yeah, especially given like, speaking optimistically, they will probably speak again, and then that's gonna all unravel.
Yeah. No, yeah.
I could definitely see Lift just trying to mess with people, though. I feel like she absolutely will.
9 days till apocalypse. Let's have fun starting a new pranking show.
Oh God. Oh, I just think it's funny she's been hanging around Vasher of all people.
Oh yeah, but speaking of Vasher, I wonder when he's gonna do something.
Yeah, Vasher is a really open question, like since that one scene in Rhythm of War. So
yeah, he's just been removed from the plot altogether.
Yeah, I hope that we don't have to wait until Horneater to see what he's up to.
Yeah. Because I don't think he's probably not at Urithiru, because I think there's some wob about saying like he was occupied with other business during the occupation, or like he wasn't like present.
Yeah.
I thought for sure when we started the Kalak interlude and stuff was awakening, I was like, oh, Vasher's visiting Kalak for some reason, but no, still MIA.
Moving on, we have so many characters to talk about. Like there is so much happening in this part.
I know. I feel like we're not even halfway done and we've already had like 2 hours of podcast.
Yeah, who do we got? Kaladin and Shallan left.
Yeah, so maybe let's talk about Adolin for a moment, because we do see that like Adolin is, all those frustrations with Dalinar that he's been kind of pushing down in Rhythm of War are coming out and boiling over now that, the two of them are actually forced to share space.
In the same space again.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Which, like, genuinely can't blame Adolin for it. Like, he's got very good grievances, and Dalinar is extremely damn bad at actually addressing those grievances.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even clear if they've specifically talked about the fact that Dalinar killed EB.
I think they did not. So. Yeah, I think that there is the implication is that Adolin had to learn about it from Dalinar's book, and they just haven't discussed it since.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so messed up.
It's so messed up. Like, and Dalinar is so caught up in the fact that, like, there are things he's improved, like throughout his life, about this like whole redemption arc he went on and being a Radiant. Like, he's so caught up in that he can't see the flaws that he still has.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is also part of the reason why he's not advancing in his oaths. Because unity, I mean, if his family can't even be united, how is he supposed to keep on bringing unity like to the rest of the world?
And like he doesn't even seem to understand like what Adolin's problem is. I think he I don't remember the exact wording, but I think he calls it like Adolin having a tantrum. which like
I think so.
Man.
Rlain could give them some pointers at this point.
Dalinar somehow worse dad than Rlain.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a race to the bottom in the Cosmere for the worst dad award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to Lynn and Naturo and Dalinar, Rlain's, A+.
Oh god.
Yeah, but other than that, like it's kind of cute and sweet that Adolin is like narrating what's happening to Maya because she seemingly can see into the physical realm.
Mm-hmm.
Which like these two have always had like the best bond, and I'm glad that we're seeing more of it.
Still hoping we do not get an Adolin Edge Dancer. I much prefer him not being a Radiant, just because of the dynamics that causes.
Yeah.
Also, much prefer Adolin not being Odium's champion.
Yes, please, for the love of God. I hate that theory as well, honestly.
I think at this point I am like full on in favor of like Gavinor champion. I think they've set that up. Brandon's setting that up. So yeah, I feel pretty okay about the idea that Adolin won't be the champion, but I am worried that he will be dead by the end of this book.
Yeah, I am also worried. Like, I hope he isn't, but I am worried.
Yeah, the placement of Adolin and Aasimar, I feel like pretty much puts to bed the idea that he'll be Odium's champion. Because I feel like I'm not sure how he would even get out of Aasimar after I don't want to go into like all the speculation about how they're going to defend Aasimar or whatever, but I feel like he's going to be there for the long haul.
Yeah, and I think even with how angry Adolin is with Dalinar, like I can't see him character-wise making that big of a shift, because I do think, I mean, he's not going to have 12 years in the spiritual realm to get corrupted like Gavinor is. So I don't think he will be.
But
yeah, other than that, I don't think there's much to say about Adolin. His plotline is only just starting here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You don't have much of him.
It'll be interesting.
The other thing I just wanted to say was I love him interacting with Gox as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just great. It's a classic Adolin, and it's part of why I like him so much.
On that note, I just want to give a shout out to, I think, Very Nice Name proposed this idea that when Adolin dies, Gox is going to bond Maya because Maya's not going to be a Deadeye anymore. Can't say I can't say I would like that to happen, but it's definitely I can see that happening, unfortunately.
I don't like the prerequisites of this theory.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if Adolin does die, then sure, I guess. But I don't like Adolin dying.
Yeah.
I can only accept Adolin dying if he like becomes a cognitive shadow and sticks around in Shadesmar.
Then we can get an Adolin blade, so that'd be nice.
Yes, Shallan's third friend. Or Maya's friend. Maybe they're going to like Ishar Maya, and
There's only room in this book for one human spren swap meet demeet bond situation, and that's between Syl and Kaladin. So
to close off this little gaggle of characters who have been arguing and debating things and getting themselves stuck in foreign realms in Urithiru, we've got Dalinar, who's been kind of in the background of almost all of these interactions so far.
I am curious to see where he goes, but I also have very mixed feelings about Dalinar this book with the way he's handling things. I mean, we've talked about the whole Adolin thing already. I don't love what he tells Kaladin in day one about his anger either. And I think we discussed that on that episode a little bit. Just this whole thing of I have to ascend to honor. I get where the thought process is coming from, but I don't know how much of a good idea it is, even if restoring honor and all these things are important.
Yeah.
think Dalinar is also like very biased in one direction, and that wouldn't be great for the Shard.
Yeah.
On the one hand, the idea that the Stormfather says it's a bad idea. I think the Stormfather's a bit of an idiot, so I think that kind of is evidence that it's a good idea. But at the same time, I also do think that it's a bad idea for him to try to ascend.
I think it's also like we've been getting throughout this whole day sort of the highlights of like Dalinar. He's so hyper focused on the whole like saving Rasarr plan that he is kind of ruining the relations he has here. Like, for example, okay, so he did eventually agree to Mink's plan to like go to Herdaz, which who knows what's that gonna work out with. But also he's been, dismissive of Adolin and neglecting Gavinor. And,
And even Navani's feeling it.
Yeah, and like Navani's feeling the pressure. And, he's not thinking about Renarin at all, but that's like standard Dalinar, so,
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is all going to end up like biting him in the ass eventually.
I forget who said this and when it was said, but at some point there was this feeling expressed by one of the characters that it's great having Dalinar doing stuff when he's not affecting you because he just sort of is so stubborn that nothing can stop him. But once it starts affecting you and you feel the impact, like the unmovingness of his feelings on basically everything, it starts to get pretty annoying. I think that Navani may have said that or something. I'm not sure, but I do appreciate that we're seeing like, yeah, when Dalinar has a good idea and everyone's helping him, it's he's pretty good at this, and it's good to have this single-mindedness. But when he's unsure of like what he should do, but he decides to do something because he needs to do something, it starts going poorly.
Yeah, when he isn't capable of like accepting influence and taking advice, like that's a really big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, yes, sometimes you need somebody decisive, but Dalinar, you aren't the only person. Like, take advice, stop being so stubborn, stop thinking that you're the only person that can fix this. Other people have talents too.
Yeah,
basically.
And I am optimistic that we'll at least get some character growth from him. I think Brandon originally intended for book 5 to be like Dalinar's book, and book 3 be Szeth's. So I do wonder if like Brandon has at least some sort of character development plans. I mean, I think he would have to undergo some drastic character development before.
Well, he's been tossed into the character development machine that is the spiritual realm. So he's got ample time if Brandon wants.
The character development particle accelerator.
It's like in like DBZ, the hyperspace chamber.
Yeah, it's like training in like an increased gravity environment to get stronger. It's like you throw him into the spiritual realm to accelerate the character development. The fact that the Stormfather is so opposed to Dalinar ascending is interesting. I have some thoughts about why that might be the case, but and I'm not sure how much of a difference this is from what the Stormfather was doing with Gavinor, because that was a herald thing, but the Stormfather was okay with Gavinor really wanting to be a herald. He was okay with that idea of really wanting to be a herald. He was not okay with the idea of restarting the Desolations. But then Dalinar really wants to be honor, and the Stormfather is like, this is terrible. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Stormfather has been really like sus this book. Like like the sibling also mentions that Stormfather's personality has changed, and that's some like I don't remember exactly, but I think the sibling also mentioned that some of the events that Stormfather describes, their memory of it is different than his recounting of it.
I believe it's in the plate room.
Yeah, well, what I think it comes down to for me is that this isn't the case of like the Storm Faker, but that the Stormfather is more like human than we know, like memory problems, the ability to change. Like he's not as immutable as we think he is, basically.
I also imagine getting like, because he is like the cognitive shadow of honor, right? That was like a thing established in previous books. So I wonder if part of like what that change that sibling is sensing with him is maybe that like Tanavast influence on him. Because like the father is his own creature, but he is also this cognitive shadow. And I guess like, you know, if merging with a ghost isn't going to change your personality, what will?
Yeah, because the sibling went to sleep before Tanavast completely died.
Yeah,
so they would like, never have known the Stormfather bonded with Tanavast's cognitive shadow.
Yeah, because like Tanavast died fully like around the Recreance period, right? And siblings stopped talking to people like shortly before the Recreance, in like the lead up to the Recreance.
Yeah, I agree that it's definitely not a matter of like a fake Stormfather being anywhere, but more, I think part of it is a slightly different characterization of the Stormfather that we're not used to, because he's like bonded and stuff, and that will change the Spren. But I think also part of it is like this idea that Tanavast is significant in some way, is like going to be significant in this book rather than just being historically significant, is being built up to with this like giving hints to the Stormfather's dichotomy of like Rider of Storms, who's like, I am the storm, and the Tanavast cognitive shadow, which are like in the same thing. They're in the same entity, but they like have different influences and personalities. Wonder how I assume the Stormfather will continue to be able to interact with Dalinar when Dalinar is in the spiritual realm.
Yeah, we know like
but I'm
the
not sure.
Stormfather is like one of the few like entities we know can send people visions, so you know he should be on home ground here.
Yeah, I think it's pretty likely. Do you think that the sibling is able to interact with Navani as well? And we haven't seen her be able to do stuff with visions yet.
No.
I don't think this would like break the bond or anything. So I think that they should still be able to interact. But
I kind of wonder, because like there is that thing that Navani can spend too long away from the tower.
Yeah.
But does the spiritual realm count? Because it's like everything and nothing at the same time.
Right, because space is slightly different, you know, in just Shadesmart. I'm sure it's way weirder with spiritual.
That's a good point, because there's also the idea that people have been talking about basically since that scene with the meeting where they're sending out forces everywhere to counteract Odium, that they're sort of not accounting for the fact that Odium might attack Earthru for the third time with like skybreakers or something. Because, but even if it's not like if it's like the sibling is like powering down, the longer Navani is in the spiritual realm, it wouldn't even need to be skybreakers that attack, because all the counter defenses would stop working. So
yeah,
that's an interesting.
And I expect
idea.
Odium, like Turbangian, will know that Navani is in the spiritual realm, and he probably would know if it's going to weaken the tower or not. So I could definitely see him taking advantage of that.
It's a bit of a pity that we won't have the time to read the interludes before this episode has to go live, because I imagine the next Taravangian interlude is really going to be enlightening in this regard.
Yeah. He may be standing there waiting to greet some of them in the spiritual realm. Who knows?
Yeah. Handing out leaflets just like, welcome to the spiritual realm. Here's how it works. Or like just straight up snatching Gavinor up from there.
I don't like how much we have worked out all the bad stuff that is going to happen to Gavinor for the rest of this book.
This is the welcome to Shardcast, the Gavinor, depression and anxiety podcast.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Here I thought that the worst thing that would happen to Gavinor in this book was Dalinar would kick him off the top of the tower and they're
oh my god. Look, this is not Greek mythology. Dalinar is not Zeus and is not Hera, and Gavinor is not Hephaestus. Thank you very much.
Well, that's a deep cut.
I mean, first thing that came to my mind, honestly.
I mean, I did have the one cursed idea that's not necessarily, bad for Gavinor. If Gavinor ages up 12 years or whatever in the spiritual realm, and he's really good friends with Lift, arguably his best friend, we could have the Gavinor Lift ship when he comes out of the spiritual realm.
Although they set up the Lift Sigil's ship, that although this is obviously end in tragedy when Sigil is shunted off world, but
oh god,
maybe Gavinor will be her rebound.
not think of that. Oh my god.
But so,
Okay, so
before we move on from this lovely conversation, speaking of like Lift and Gavinor and Sibling, can I just say I appreciate that Sibling finally gets some more personality.
Yeah.
I think I've been pretty vocal on Shardcasts before that I don't really like how Brandon wrote Sibling in Rhythm of War. It's very Stormfather 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I am glad that we get like this little moment where they end up teasing Lift and like joking about it, because it feels like they are actually like a distinct entity and not just, again, Stormfather 2nd edition.
Yeah, I like her sassing Lift right back, where Lift's like, you're a building, I don't have to listen to you. And the Sibling just roasts her right back.
Oh, and the Sibling also explains germ theory to Lift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's everyone who's in Urithiru right now.
Yes, I think the only people we have left are Szeth and Kaladin.
Yeah. They are off doing their own thing.
Yeah, not too much, because a lot of it is sort of Szeth diegetically telling his flashbacks to Kaladin, which I appreciate. I think at the end of this Szeth's second flashback, he's like, "I'm done talking now."
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I do like that we are getting those flashbacks like they are diegetic, because like, okay, so in Oathbringer we did have like Dalinar was getting sometimes Dalinar was getting flashbacks when he was getting his memories back, because like the curse was falling off him. But here we just straight up have flashbacks because Szeth is just telling this to Kaladin.
Yeah.
With what we learn at the very end of this day with Ishar talking about giving Szeth a mission, I assume that may be, one of the last flashbacks we get is Szeth. Like we see how, I think we were always going to see how Szeth became truthless, but now it's going to feature Ishar, yapping at Szeth.
I am so curious about that. Like, what exactly did Ishar tell him? Because I think we have a general idea, something about how he became truthless, his mission to cleanse Shinovar, etc., etc. But the specifics, I think, are going to be really interesting after this conversation that Ishar had with Kaladin.
There was such a jump scare too when they just first saw Ishar. There was no like lead up of like Kaladin surveying the land. It was just Ishar is there.
Yep.
And it seems like he just sort of astral projected in. So he could have just actually appeared there, or he like appeared somewhere and just like walked up to Kaladin.
I mean, he disappears in pretty much the same way.
Yeah.
He just kind of just poofs away.
Jump scares.
Yeah, which I wonder how he did that, because like he's a bondsmith. He doesn't have like else calling powers. So is it like some weird connection shenanigans, or like
he's a bondsmith on chain? They can do that.
Okay. Every time something inexplicable happens, I'm just gonna say, "Oh, there's a bondsmith Unchained there."
And there was the
mumbo jumbo.
Yeah,
and there was the very interesting point that Shar mentions of, he says that he's taking like the darkness of all the heralds, like taking their madness onto himself, and the only reason that most of them are sane is because of him, except Taln. Poor Taln. He also calls Taln and Ash useless, which I personally,
you're not happy about.
I was not. I am, I used to be all right with Ishar, but now I'm, if Kaladin has no luck with Ishar, I would not complain if something horrible was to happen to him. But
yeah, I mean, do we really need Ishar?
Not really.
Yeah, I have no idea how. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Ishar could do that, of like take all the burdens. But I mean, even if he is doing that, he's not doing a very good job.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe what he is doing is what's caused the Herald Madness. Although I like the idea that the Herald Madness is because of like people's beliefs in the Heralds. I like that more than the idea that
Ishar's
just like doing stuff. But
and we also have to take everything that he says with a grain of salt, because it's
like,
Ishar.
Yeah, Ishar has an Ishar filter on everything he says, and that's
yeah.
Yeah.
Kaladin's like, he seems a bit better than the descriptions I got from Dalinar and Zigzil. But
like, no, you can be coherent in terms of like saying words that make sense, like one after the other.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean the thought behind it and the logic is coherent whatsoever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, like Ishar is still like absolutely convinced he is God, so that's a problem. Yeah, so he gave Szeth some mission, but end of the book reveal clearly.
Mhm.
But Szeth also, it is interesting that he is like insistent that he's not going to open up to Kaladin, but he does end up kind of starting. Yeah, he talks to him, and later he like agrees to maybe go to his own like family home, which I'm sure that's not going to be traumatizing to him at all.
Mhm.
Oh, Szeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, he makes the comment, I believe, that like the fact that he is worried about the well-being of his people makes him a bad skybreaker or something. Which, like, speaking of, at some point, Nail's going to show up.
Yes.
And give Szeth 101 on division. But hopefully, Szeth has grown a bit by that point. Maybe can give Nail some 101s on being a skybreaker. But
I wonder if it's gonna be as sudden as Ishar appearing. That's like they're eating dinner and suddenly, like, poof, Nail falls from the sky.
Ashral falls from the sky.
Well, yeah, maybe Kaladin's just going to encounter every single Herald as like a jump scare.
It's gonna be
Herald
funny,
speedrun.
That's how we get the Chana Devar reveal.
Listen, we have like 9 heralds and 9 days. They could totally get a herald today.
True.
I was just going to say I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Kaladin de-meeting and Silladin meeting theory. And so I know that this is I mean, I'll be honest, it was sort of a joke when I first thought about it, but I do think that there has been a lot of foreshadowing all the way back to Words of Radiance when we had the fleet story that Kaladin, something's going to happen to Kaladin. Mm-hmm. So the story of Fleet is basically he runs and then eventually dies and then basically joins the High Storm after dying. And all this happens in Shinovar. So I think that the idea that Kaladin will sort of parallel that idea may not involve dying, but something transformative is going to happen in Shinovar for him. And given that he's now also talking with the wind, which we learned a little bit more about the old gods, not much, but the wind apparently is now able to talk because of the change in Vessel and Odium, which is kind of wild. That Reyes was just seemingly doing stuff with the wind for his entire existence. It was stopping the wind from talking. But I think that something's going to happen where Kaladin like replaces the Stormfather or becomes some sort of Spren or something. Basically, I don't think that he'll die permanently because I don't think that that's a satisfying end to his arc.
Yeah,
but I also think that I think that something needs to happen to take him out of being able to be the main character in the back half and being some sort of Spren entity that maybe they can ask advice from, but he can't really be there for the entire story would be an option. And and then potentially he could bond Syl after she turns into meat.
Into meat is probably the worst way to phrase because
so
that I possibly think of.
So the Ishar's experiment is foreshadowing something. Yeah. I have no idea what is foreshadowing, but it's going to have to come up. And Ishar is going to be in Shinovar with Syl. And so if he's going to meet a Spren, it's going to be Syl, I think.
I don't like using meat as a verb.
Me neither.
Get used to it.
Like I've gotten too used to it from seeing it like around like WAT spoilers, but I hate it so much.
Will, you were starting to say something.
Oh yeah, I was saying one thing that caught my attention is I don't think that they didn't really have any difficulties like flying into Shinovar. which I thought was interesting because in Rhythm of War, Dalinar talks about like all the scouts we've sent to Shinovar don't return, and like Windrunner flybys get like met with waves of arrows, but we don't see any waves of arrows when they're coming in, and it's not a huge time difference. Yeah. I mean, it's been probably I think that's towards the beginning of Rhythm of War, so probably just a few weeks, but
yeah. I mean, Szeth says that like there are no candles in any windows. It seems like no one's there. So
I wonder if maybe you know how like in horror movies, in horror video games, there is this very frequent motive that you as the player character have arrived like shortly after some disaster has occurred. And you know, everything has already happened. You're just here to look at the wreckage. I kind of wonder if this is what we are about to witness in like Kaladin and Szeth plotline. Something has just happened and they need to figure out what's going on there. Or rather what went down and where everyone went. Because we do have like that big shadow over the monastery, which I think was actually like the monastery of Taln, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, so it would not have an honor blade. Well, probably doesn't have an honor blade. Who knows if they picked up Taln's honor blade and it's there.
That depends on how your game of like
Starlight
RPG goes.
Yeah. I've always just sort of been confused about how Szeth is going to cleanse Shinovar in this span of time. And so the idea that most people in Shinovar are like elsewhere for who knows, would simplify things, where Szeth has to like maybe like he's like, okay, I'll find where the stone shaman is all like they've all left the monasteries, they must have gone to this place, so we have to go this place, and that's also where Ishar is, or there has to be some like some way to like tie those sorts of threads together, in my opinion, to be able to do this all in 8 days.
Anything else on Szeth, Kaladin, all that?
I mean, I guess we've really we've covered the flashbacks already, which is the other like big like discussion point there was, even if we'd already seen them, about just poor traumatized Szeth and like his relationship to responsibility and making decisions, which he acknowledges explicitly in one of these last chapters of like why I have a hard time making decisions. He says something to that effect to Kaladin. I think that's it, really, other than maybe Kaladin's bad attempts at therapy, but I don't know what there's to actually discuss there beyond mentioning it.
It's kind of funny to me that Kaladin seems to have become actively worse at therapy after he was told he has to do therapy of people. Yeah. It's like, you are good at something and then suddenly someone is watching and you suddenly become bad at it.
I don't remember if any of the people he talked to in Rhythm of War were like opposed to the idea of getting therapy. Whereas Szeth is like, he's very adamant that his mental condition is a just punishment for his crimes.
Which is messed up, by the way. I would like to acknowledge that this is very messed up.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think that Ishar feels that way, but Ishar is also Ishar, so.
Oh, Ishar thinks he's like the bee's knees. He's not being punished. He is thriving.
Yeah, he thinks he's like the last Coke in the desert. Like,
yeah.
I mean, he basically says something to the effect of like, clearly you're delusional because I'm God. God doesn't need any help.
Looking forward to seeing Szeth's sister all grown up wielding an honor blade or something, and maybe that happens. I feel like something has to happen
to fight her.
I've seen the theory that she is going to become. She's going to take the gemstone that holds Yelignar, because basically everyone in that family is like experts at all searches, and so they'd be like the perfect vessel to get the unmade that gives them all the searches.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't quite like getting the logic of how we go from Yelignar to Szeth's sister, but. Yeah.
So I don't know if it was this day or the other day, but we learned that Aesidon was like consumed by Yelignar or something to that effect. and Amaram is dead. So it seems like if you take Yellignor, it's like a short-term thing.
Yes.
Or it's a matter of finding the right host.
Looking forward to Szeth getting even more traumatized, you know.
Mhm.
This is going to be the book where just everyone gets their asses kicked mentally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Szeth and Gavinor starting a support group of like people messed up by the Unmade.
Yeah.
Maybe Shallan too, because you know how Brandon said that there was an Unmade somewhere.
Oh, right. Yes.
Influencing her family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The funniest thing would be if, like, they are all messed up by 3 different Unmades. Just every Unmade has their like little chew puppet to kick down the stairs whenever they want to.
I was just going to say that I felt that Kaladin and Syl was a much better, much improved from their day one versions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
In terms of their relationship. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. So I think now we are through all the POV characters, at least the ones that have any like sizable presence in this part, which, you know, you really get that epic fantasy feeling now because we are 2 hours into the raw recording, 2.5 hours into the raw recording, and
like
we are
2.5 at least.
Yeah, and we are just raw recording. Who knows how long it will be for you viewers / listeners. What else is there to be said?
I do think the epigraphs, there's something to be said for them.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is a set of epigraphs that we have to take more in context. I wish they'd had time to reread them back to back because I think that would have helped. I didn't though.
Yeah, if you've forgotten, readers, the epigraphs are another parable from the Way of Kings, which describes Nohadon meeting a family on the road who is traveling to find a new life, presumably in Urithiru, and has basically uprooted the entire life and family to go there. And he does not tell them that he is the king of Urithiru. And this whole thing is a parable about how people should be free to up and leave places where they don't want to stay, which
and about like letting go, and like Nohadon also like letting go of like his kingship to like do this thing, you know.
And
which
just in some context, it's commonly theorized that every parable in the Way of Kings corresponds to an oath for a level of an oath for one of the orders. Because there are 40 parables
before.
I believe there are 40 parables, and excluding the first ideal, which is the same for everyone, there are 40 oaths that correspond to an order for the 2nd through 5th levels. And I don't think that much has been. I don't think we know enough about many of the parables to really match anything, but that's sort of how I read the epigraphs, trying to figure out what order, what oath this corresponded to. We don't know enough to really say, I think, but
yeah,
I think it'd be weird if it weren't a bondsmith ideal that was being sort of, if that theory about the parables is true, I think it'd be weird if this weren't corresponding to one of the bondsmith oaths.
Another theory I have seen going around is that it may be foreshadowing like humanity, or at least a portion of humanity leaving the planet at the end of this, because like freedom to go wherever you go, which brief spoilers for a later interlude that Brandon has read. We do see this happen in the what's her name, the Iriali interlude.
Yeah, I don't remember what her name is, honestly.
Yeah,
the granddaughter of Yim, the shoemaker.
Yes, so we do see that at least some humans are just bailing on the whole like Rasarr conflict thing. And I do kind of wonder if this is kind of foreshadowing that.
Yeah, and we also have the epilogue to The Lost Metal, where Milan sees a bunch of red-haired people in Shadesmar, and there's only one group of red-haired individuals that I am aware of in the Cosmere that are significant in any way, and that's the Horn Eaters. And they also conveniently live near perpendicularities, so they could get to Shadesmar very quickly if they so desired.
So it is possible that we're going to see just like a big exodus, like maybe not everyone, because, the second half still has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Brandon is going to write, 5 books of epic fantasy exclusively about singers. As fun as that could be. But it does seem like we are going to see a pretty big like exodus from Rasarr.
Mm-hmm. And like again, I don't think it would be the Stormlight Archive if everyone left. Like I know this has been a super popular theory like since forever, but the Stormlight Archive without Rasarr just doesn't click for me. So while I do think that we'll see like a pretty big exodus, I don't think any of our like main characters are really gonna be like in that group.
I could definitely see like Odium takes over all of Rasarr, Everstorm everywhere. I do feel like you might have like the nice Radiant staying behind to try to fix things or whatever, and just the general populace is leaving somewhere. I see something like that happening.
It should be said that there seems to be a bit of a special circumstance for the Iriali leaving, because that's sort of their thing. But at the same time, it doesn't seem that they're restricting people leaving to just Iriali in that interlude, from what I remember. I've reread recently.
Yeah, I think so.
There's also the interpretation, the idea of Nohadon giving up kingship, and the idea that something happened with Honor, that Cultivation does not want to just tell Dalinar, that she feels he needs to learn himself. And so, given that we know that Honor was not shattered, there's the idea that Tanavas like gave up Honor or something, that there was some like abdication there. But that's sort of like, I'm not sure how that tracks with the visions we've seen of Tanavast and what we've heard from Radiants at the time talking about Tanavast, of like he's raving and all that. I do think that the interludes are sort of, they potentially have some interesting foreshadowing, but I definitely found that the Day 1 interludes were a bit more interesting just because they were like weird new stuff. But I think sort of there is some stuff to gain from analyzing these interludes.
I do hope that we will go back to more Wind and Truth epigraphs at some point, just because I feel like there's still a lot. Because I don't know if we'll find out like who the author of those is. Like if the main characters will stumble upon it this book, but it would be nice to get more clues to that at some point.
Yeah. I don't think they will I don't think Wind and Truth exists within the universe yet.
Right.
So I don't think they'll be able to find it, because it is talking about Kaladin and Szeth's mission to Shinovar as something that has already happened. So unless the writer is the fastest person in the Cosmere, I don't think they're getting this book out before the 9 days are up.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to get some sort of clue in the actual epigraphs themselves.
I think we've covered most everything that's come out. We have a lot coming up. A lot has happened. Like we said at the beginning, Navani says in one of the later chapters of Day 2 that this day has just gone by with a flash. No, it has not, Navani. It really hasn't.
It has not.
But yeah, any other thoughts? Anything else that caught your eye?
Just want to say it was entertaining reading the depressing camping trip vibes with Kaladin and Szeth, where it's the stew sucks, the flute playing is terrible, everyone's grumpy.
I think I don't think we know near enough to have brought it up in the episode much, but all this old god stuff has been very interesting, and we got a little bit of it from the sibling just sort of lore dumping about the knight, who is seemingly another one of these old gods, and how the Night Watcher is made from the essence of the night. And I don't know what that means or what that will imply later or anything, but it's been very interesting. And then also the confirmation that the Dawn Singers predate Honor and Cultivation arriving on Rasarr, which Gliss told us. And just sort of this idea that there's this whole pantheon seemingly of the Dawn Singers, although I'm not sure if that's accurate to say, that existed on Rasarr that something happened to. And some of them are still around. Some of them left. Some of them were imprisoned by odium. And I'm hoping that, I'm sure that we will learn more about it.
Maybe that's the Unmade, at least some of them.
Maybe. Yeah, because so we have 3 right now. We have the Wind, the Stones, and the Night. There is an Unmade that is Midnight Essence. But yeah, like I think that this is like, at first I was almost annoyed that this was like all being introduced in this book. I kind of still am, I guess, but I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, and they do give at least a little explanation of like with the whole odium thing, but it is, it is kind of funny that everyone knows about it and is only mentioning it just now, type thing.
Yeah, just slipped everyone's mind, I guess.
Yeah, for 4,500 pages.
Veronica, any thoughts?
Honestly, I don't really know anything. I think I have a suspicion that day 3 is going to be a little bit less chaotic in terms of point of view, and it's going to be a little bit more like siloed. Like, okay, this arc here, this arc here, this arc here, because people have separated in terms of like geography. Well, if you can call the spiritual realm geography, but you know what I mean. I think like it's going to like chill back down in terms of like number of POVs. And I don't know, I'm very excited to see where things are going.
Yeah, like in terms
I
of
just
day
hope
3.
that at least we get one POV that's in the spiritual realm. Because if we don't, and Brandon just gives us like Kaladin and Adolin and I don't know, Lift or whoever like has stayed behind, I will be mad.
Yeah, same. I feel like we have to get at least some spiritual realm stuff.
Yeah, I think in terms of like, if we are predicting what's going to happen in the future, we've talked about it before, poor Gavinor. I think we will be getting like spiritual realm stuff, and I imagine we will not actually like see directly what's happening with Gavinor. We will just be, if he really is aging up. I think he really is aging up during the spiritual realm stuff. And I think we're just going to be like seeing glimpses of like, here's Dalinar sees Gavinor at age 5, but Gavinor runs off. Then, for example, Shallan sees like a 9-year-old Gavinor, and then Renarin and Rlain run into like 12-year-old Gavinor, and then Dalinar again hears 15-year-old Gavinor.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, I don't think we'd get like a Gavinor POV in the spiritual realm, especially if he's aging up. I do wonder. I guess it's fully possible that we'll have like Gavinor's the only one aging up, and like the others don't age up much. It's definitely. I don't think like everyone. Because I feel like it'd be weird for our POV characters to be in there for 12 years or something like that.
Yeah,
because this is already a long book.
It would be funny if like Renarin and Rlain had enough time to like get together, like within the spiritual realm. Because like imagine this from Adolin's perspective. You leave your cousin and your brother behind, and you go to war, and then you come back like a week later, and your brother is in a committed relationship with a singer, and your cousin is like 15 years older.
And is Odium's champion.
No. Not that.
Yeah. I really, really hope for like Adolin POVs in like whatever is happening with Cosmere. It's probably not going to be as like big important events happening as like in Kaladin and Szeth or the spiritual realm school trip plot. But I really am hoping for like just cool Adolin action. Call it filler, but I like Adolin. What can I say?
I'm definitely hoping that we get either a Venli POV or Sigzil interacts with them in day 3.
Yes,
I think that we need to get that started sooner rather than later.
There's a lot to go through.
There is a lot of book to go through. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we've not heard hide nor hair from Moash yet.
Yeah.
And,
right.
He's got to be in Shinovar, right? Or going to Shinovar? I feel like not having him interact with Kaladin would be weird.
Where else could Moash be?
Yeah.
Oh,
which, by the way, one of interesting detail, I'm not sure if this is like Brandon messing up or like deliberate thing. Gavinor calls Moash fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know.
Which is
that.
interesting because Gavinor was not in the tower for the like takeover, like right? He was like with Dalinar and Yasna in Emul.
Mm-hmm.
And he was taken from Kholinar before Moash got his new name. So like where did he learn that?
Mm-hmm.
It might just be a continuity issue, honestly.
That might just be it.
Yeah. I mean, there was like I think at some point Kaladin sort of just randomly knows Szeth's name in like Words of Radiance, I think. And
right.
I'm not sure what would explain him knowing that other than like, oh, he heard someone call Moash fire in the like few days between Rhythm of War and now. But
yeah,
it is
weird though.
It could be a continuity error. I feel like, it should be called out that Rhythm of War has had a lot of those like minor continuity errors like everywhere. Like, I think, not to be like annoying about it, but I think this book could have really used another like continuity.
It could have used another round of editing. Absolutely. Like, okay. Tiny publishing tangent. So books are normally turned in at least a year, if not 2 years before they go to publication.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that is before like copy editing and like all that stuff. But the fact that this happened in less than a year and just a couple of months, like you can tell that it could have used another round of editing, especially for those continuity things and the retcons. And Peter even mentioned on the Discord that there was some art that appeared in the previews that isn't where it's supposed to be, and that some of that may have not been fixed for the first printing.
Yeah, I think
like, this book is already massive. Imagine having to do something for like a book this size on that short of a timeline, which is shorter than it is for most books that are a fourth of the size.
Yeah, and I think part of that is, I think part of that is just the whole having an annual convention that you're tying to book releases.
Yeah, they have definitely like rushed it for Dragonsteel. And yeah, on that cheery note, shall we move on?
I definitely enjoyed day 2 a lot more than I enjoyed day 1.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. To be clear,
minor complaints,
Yeah, the book is definitely on an upwards trend, but I felt it was necessary to call out. Yeah. So yeah, on that cheerful note, shall we move on to who's that Cosmere character?
This character is from Rasarr.
Menace. Tien.
Taln.
Mraze.
Void in drag on a horse. It's time for Who's That Cosmere Character? Caw.
Welcome to Who's That Cosmere Character, the show where you send in 5 clues and a character at wtcc at 17shard.com. I read each of the clues aloud, and our panelists get a chance to guess who's that Cosmere character. So today we are going to do some submissions from our Who's That Cosmere Character priority queue, which you get from our heralds on Patreon. That is our highest tier on Patreon for $10 a month. 10 heralds, you get the joke. But you can support our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. We have outtakes sometimes and we commission cool art, so if you want to contribute to that, it's at patreon.com/17shard, and of course link will be in the description. So, let's get to guessing. So this first WTCC is from Evelyn Basham. Hello, Evelyn. And clue number 1 is an absolute classic. This character is from Rasarr.
I knew it would be. Venli.
Nope, it's not Venli.
Szeth.
Not Szeth.
Let's go with Town.
It's not Taln.
Oh, wait, he's not from Rasarr.
Who's also not from Rasarr, he's from Ash.
So, clue number 2. This character has met 2 point of view characters.
Leshwi.
It's not Leshwi.
Kaladin.
It's not Kaladin.
Oh, I guess this is only 2 POV characters.
The clue simply says met 2 POV characters.
Gavinor?
Could be 2 more.
It's not Gavinor. Clue number 3. As far as we know, this character is not a parent.
I guess Gallant.
No.
Is it the bastard son of the king of Yaakoved?
It's not whatever his name was. Whoever that was, it's not them. Man, talk about an abandoned plotline.
I mean, he killed his dad, and that was that.
Oh, is it? What's his name? Non-Balat.
It's not Nan-Balat. Clue number 4. This character doesn't live with their siblings.
Is it Shallan?
It's not Shallan.
Oh. Is it Evie's brother?
It's not Toh.
I'm like, who has multiple siblings? Does not live with them. Has at least met 2 POV characters. Is not a parent, which means it could plausibly be a parent because it says as far as we know.
Right. That's why I was thinking horse because,
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't know there.
I'm just gonna take a wild guess because I'm tired of thinking of something else. Rlain?
It's not Rlain. Clue number 5. Many of the point of view characters do live with one of this character's siblings.
Is it? Okay. Is it the Stormfather?
It's not the Stormfather.
Is it Syl?
It's not Syl.
I think characters. Who has more than 2 siblings? I feel like living with has got to mean you're a Thiru because there's not like another place where multiple live. I mean, unless it's very broad, like Alethkar, but I'm guessing it's talking about your Thiru.
I think I know what this is.
Let Will guess. If Will doesn't guess, then everyone has tried and you can try again.
I don't like this pressure.
Go.
I don't know. Man, I'm completely blanking. I will guess.
It happens.
It's like that. You like remember everyone, and then suddenly someone asks you a question, and phew.
I don't know. I could think of like 3 characters in Roshar. This probably doesn't apply to any clues, but I'll just go with the sibling.
It's not the sibling.
Is it the Night Watcher?
It is the Night Watcher, yes.
I was...
Yeah, that does make more sense.
I was thinking,
like,
okay, it's one or the other.
It has to, like, you're making sense. And you'd already guessed the Stormfather. And then met 2 POV characters, and as far as we know, like, it started...
I would contest... The reason I picked this, I said the Stormfather and not the Night Watcher is because the 2 characters I was thinking of for the Stormfather was Kaladin and Dalinar. And as far as I know, well, I guess Syl also. Never mind. I was going to say the Night Watchers met 3 people, 3 POV characters: Lift, Taravangian, and Dalinar.
Yeah, I mean, like by the same token, like Navani met the Stormfather too, so he doesn't like fit that rule either.
Right.
Okay, so that was that. Good job, Evelyn. You've stumped them until the very end.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Our next second WTCC for the day is from Oliver. Hello, Oliver.
Hello.
And the first clue: this character runs a business.
Renette.
Nope.
Is it Adolin's Taylor?
It's not Adolin's Taylor.
Is it Silence Montaigne?
It's not Silence Montaigne. Okay, clue number 2. This character received a debilitating injury during their employment.
Clubs.
Clubs. Yes, it is Clubs.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
The other proprietor of a business in a Mistborn book.
So the remaining clues were: this character died in combat, this character owned a large home, and this character is an allomancer. So congratulations on getting it early.
Yeah. Hey, your first double DTCC win.
Yeah, nice.
Congratulations.
Not many business owners in Cosmere, I guess.
Yeah, surprisingly, not a very business-friendly setting.
Because so many of them are nobles, that's what's going on.
You could have guessed Zesus. He runs a business. Well, I assume that he runs a corporation. He seems like the type of dragon who would do that.
Yeah.
So that's it for Who's That Cosmic Character? And that's gonna be it for this episode as well. That was a lot, like I've said before. Yeah, but if you are looking for even more theories, unhinged or hinged, or any other discussion on the preview chapters, we still have the interludes ahead of us. So if you want to discuss those, you can find us all at 17thshard.com. We also have a big Discord server that gets a lot of discussion at all times. You can also find us here on YouTube, on your podcasting service of choice, I think we might still be on Twitter, possibly. Who knows?
I don't think so. We're moving to Blue Sky more.
You can find us on Blue Sky.
Find us there.
Yeah, what else? Instagram, probably. Tumblr. We do have a Tumblr account. Do we use it?
Yeah, we do.
Sometimes. Yeah, you can find us on all sorts of social media, and you can support our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. And our next episode is going to be after Wind and Truth, the post-Wind and Truth world. Yeah, and obviously it's going to be much truther. So
possibly much ander as well.
It's been going for like 3 hours.
Yeah, so the next episode is of course going to be the reactions to the whole book. So tune in, I believe, on the weekend of the 14th of December, around then. If you want to see what we thought, what we liked, what we didn't like. And until then, see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
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 Cough.
Oh.